removing data from tables using the DML delete command or the DDL truncate command. Truncate is a bit of a gray area between DML and DDL. It's more likely used by DBAs than developers, so it tends to not really be a manipulation language thing because it allows you to dump all the data in a table without any logging, without any recourse. If you make a mistake, you roll it back, can't undo it. It commits automatically. So, with delete, you can actually delete a single row. Looking at this example query here, you delete from a table where category ID equals the max. That's going to get you the highest category only in the table. So it'll find a single row, given the structure of the data in the table. Category ID is a primary key. It's always going to be unique. Find the max value is going to find one row. Delete a single row. You could also delete many rows from a table. In this case, what you're doing is you're deleting from a table with no where clause, so it just means delete the lot. Truncate does not log any changes when you truncate a table. There is a new form of the truncate command in Oracle 11g2 which allows truncation of a cluster, which is slightly different to a table. It's somewhat advanced and may be covered in the index chapter later on in this book. But essentially a cluster is a small section of a table that is highly used, copies of it. Copies of a small number of columns highly used in a table. Slightly different, but the truncate command only allows you to dump all the rows in a table. It does not allow any rollback, no recourse, it automatically commits, and it does not log any changes. So if you say truncate the table, you try to roll it back to undo it, it won't allow it. You may be able to recover that data using a flashback command against the table, but that's something you're going to need to pass to a DBA and is not really the domain of development. So that's why I say that truncate is actually a DDL or a data definition language command, or it's a gray area between DML and DDL, but that's my preference. So a DDL truncate command is not undoable. There is no recourse. This is the basic delete statement syntax. You delete from a table using a where clause that allows you to specify whether you want to delete all the rows, some of the rows, or one of the rows. Same as a filter and an update statement and a select statement. And you can also return values as a single or a set of expressions back into PLSQL variables for use in PLSQL. And then there's the truncate statement syntax. Very simple, really. So now let's go and look at the syntax for the delete and the truncate commands inside the Oracle manuals. So let's go and find the Oracle manuals, and here we're on update, and we're going to go back out again, and let's do a quick search for delete. And here is the delete command, and the very basic syntax is essentially delete from table expression clause alias a table, essentially using a where clause and a returning clause, very much like the update statement, where the DML expression clause can be all sorts of things, including tables, views, materialized views, subquery, partitions, and so on and so forth. The other important part we really want to look at is really just the where clause and the returning clause. It's very much the same as update. Going back out again, let's search for the truncate command, and as you can see, I was talking about truncate cluster and truncate table. We don't need to worry about clusters at this point. A cluster is actually rather a dated type of Oracle exotic type of object, which I have not seen used even in a data warehouse in the last 5 years at least, if not 10 years. So truncate table, I'm sure the clusters still do exist. I'm sure someone will have them somewhere in use and someone will find a use for them, but I haven't seen them for a long time. So truncate table applies to a table, and you can drop the storage use that the table has, or you can allow it to be set for reuse immediately. And what's interesting here is you can actually preserve and or purge materialized view log entries. Now, we haven't covered materialized views, but there are certain types of materialized views that are updatable. In other words, you can change them. Materialized views copy data in tables and generally aggregate and or summarize, so that when a query comes along to read that data in the table, it can actually redivert itself to the materialized view and read a lot less data. Materialized view logs are entries like log entries in a database stored in a special table that will be used by the materialized view to update itself automatically at a later date. So when you truncate the table with any changes that were made to that truncated table, you can actually remove or preserve the changes that could be applied to materialized view later on, which is an interesting development that I have not seen before, and probably in at least 11G, but very useful. We will get to materialized views later on in this course, or at least a summary of materialized views, because they're rather complex and they're more of an advanced topic. So that's the syntax for delete and truncate.